time dialectic with some good freaking news for once in my entire time of doing this. I'm TC, this is MBRR Media. Super happy to be bringing you this update tonight. First of all, I'm going to start off with a big shout out to my show producer credits. Natalie, who is my show producer via being my volunteer researcher who pulls data, does data requests, video requests, and all that. Big shout out to her for everything that she does to help make the channel successful. Big shout out to Tav, the Angry Vet, who's frequently given out gift memberships to the channel. Super thankful for that. Hey guys, thanks for being here. Also, a big shout out to all the channel members, all the subscribers, the channel mods, all of you guys. Thank you so much for everything that you do. I cannot express enough gratitude. Everything that you guys do is just absolutely amazing. I am, in light of everything else that's been going on in the world since we all woke up on Saturday morning to that news about Venezuela and what happened there, I needed a breath of fresh air is what I needed. I needed something that I could simply just revel in. And here's why. I have spent over 5 years, almost, it'll be 6 years in April. I've been spending 6 years of reporting over and over and over and over again about bad news. Bad news after bad news after bad news after bad news after bad news. And from everybody else's cases to my case, it's just constant. It's a constant refrain of, yes, you're reading the title right, Mercedes. You guys, please be sharing this out. I was hoping that I'm hoping that this story will hit the sweet spot of streaming, and that everybody will tune in for some good news. But every single story that I cover, just time after time after time after time, it's one case after another of bad news, of cops getting away with corruption, other government entities just constantly getting away with government corruption, school boards, city councils, county commissioners, county attorneys, just one after the other. It's just constant. I know I keep saying that. But finally, in all the stories that I've done, I had the least amount of hope that we were going to get any type of resolution in a positive sense for Kaylin and Caden and Grandma Heidi over the situation with baby Hayven. And last night, as I'm making dinner, I was preparing a rustic French dish. I'm in my kitchen. I get a text, "Hey, can we call you? We need to talk." And it was from Heidi and Caden and Kaylin, and I was like, ugh. I can't. I'm like, I'm making dinner. What's going on? And like, well, we need to talk. And normally that's not good news. And I said, well, I'm making dinner. If you want to show, if you want to call, that's fine. But I was bracing myself for, hey, somebody told us something bad about you, because that's been happening a lot to me in the last month and a half to 2 months. I don't know who it is, but there are at least two, it might be only one, but there are at least two people probably just spreading terrible rumors about me and my motivation, what I do. And every time I turn around, I'm getting some sort of message about that. So I'm like, here it goes. They're about to drop truth bomb on me. That's, another accusation against my character, or they got terrible news, or it's just something really, negative. That's what I was bracing myself for. So I answer the phone when they call, and it's Kaylin on the other end, and she says, we got her back. She's home. She's home for good. Hayven is home for good. And much of that is due in large part to the quiet but very vocal and persistent work of Caden and Kaylin on the outside of the public covering of the story that I've been doing. The vast majority of it is in their hands. They did this. Caden and Kaylin did this. Heidi helped them. But you guys, the viewers, the people who watch the content, the people who have been paying attention, the thousands of views. One of the shorts, folks, is over 50,000 views. That's about as viral as I could ever dream of going with my content. 50,000 views on one of the shorts. That's on you guys. That's on you guys sharing the content. That's on you guys talking to people and telling them, hey, you got to pay attention to the story. You have to make contact. You guys put pressure just by watching. You guys put pressure on this case. You guys gave Caden and Kaylin and Heidi and their close friends and family, the people that they care about, the people that they love, you guys gave them the strength to keep up the fight. Would they have kept fighting? Oh, for damn sure they would have kept fighting. There's no doubt that they would have kept fighting. But you guys let them know by being here to watch, by being here and paying attention, by commenting on the videos, by commenting on the social media posts, by sharing them out, by making sure they got into the people's line of sight. You guys made it possible for them to continue to have strength to feed on, to continue the work that they were doing. So between Heidi and Caden and Kaylin and all of you, you all did this. You guys did this. This wasn't me. I didn't do anything but sit in front of a camera and say mean things about public servants that were doing stupid stuff on camera. That's what I did. I said mean stuff, critical, true things, but I was mean. So you guys did this. You deserve the credit. Caden and Kaylin and Heidi deserve the credit for this. I trusted in their information. I relied on Natalie for a big portion of pulling caseload level stuff for me to be able to go through and read and ascertain what route we needed to go and what things we needed to look at across the state of Minnesota and across the country. All of you, every single one of you that watched and paid attention to this case, that paid attention to the story, are responsible for making this happen. And I can't thank you guys enough. Without all of you, me covering the story wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered if I didn't have people that were watching, if I didn't have people that were sharing, if I didn't have people that were informing others of what was going on. That's how important all of you are. And I want you all to know too that in the grand scheme of things, in the reality of all of this, is the fact that we're not done by any stretch of the imagination. We have even more of the story to tell, and we have proof on multiple things that we knew that we can now share with you guys. Kaylin and Caden are going to provide ample evidence of the deceitful way that medical staff conducted genetic testing on their child without permission. No permission from them. They just conducted genetic testing and then hid it, and we're going to show that proof. If I could figure out a way to present it to you guys in video form that will be easily understandable. We're working on pulling the data on who filed the complaint, or a secondary complaint about the home. Can't mention names right now, but we're gonna, when we get that proof, we're going to show you guys how much of a setup this was, and how much of an act of revenge, and how vindictive it was, that the person that did it. You see, when I'm writing an essay for my Substack right now, and I'm not going to give too much of it away, but while it's not about Hayven, and it's not about Caden and Kaylin and Heidi in a subject matter respect, it's about some of the myths that people choose to believe in when it comes to living in a community. And I think this case is exemplary for what happens when people decide that they're going to use the system to get revenge on people, or to make life difficult for people that they decide they don't like. And that's the reality. And this case in particular demonstrates that government employees, public servants like Heidi, or not, excuse me, not Heidi, obviously not Heidi, like Audrey and Robbie Flerkey and the chief of the St. Charles Police Department, they're willing tools of bullying. They will gladly do the bidding of anybody that gives them an opportunity to target someone so they can flex their authoritarian muscles. And the regular people, I don't say civilians, and because there is not, like, cops are civilians and government employees are civilians, but the regular people who don't work for the government have learned some valuable lessons in time, and one of them is that if you can make up a story about somebody and make it sound even remotely believable, you can get cops and social workers and others to abuse them for you. I've seen this over and over and over again. I have seen, in case after case after case, of assaultive style behavior in domestic partnership situations, where one partner in a domestic relationship has used law enforcement to victimize their partner by lying about abuse. You know, we got Pam is watching, and she's in, you know, she just commented. Most of you are very familiar with Pam's story. We told Pam's story, and she's one of those cases where we're never going to get justice for Pam in her case. I've done everything I can do to help Pam. The system is stacked against everybody. And the reality is we're just never going to get justice for Pam. And so when we went into telling this story about how the police unlawfully kidnapped Hayven back in July, and they did it under the perception that they had the authority to do it because some doctor somewhere made a false accusation, along with some other person made a false accusation about the home and about the baby. They thought they were protected. They thought no one was going to pay attention. And this case, this story, as we've covered it, has been a source of a lot of pain for me, because I've seen the pain in the faces of Caden and Kaylin and Heidi. I've heard it in their voices. I have watched them move through the emotions, and I've had to have hard conversations with them, telling them, you have to prepare yourselves for never getting your baby back, because that's the track record in Minnesota. These medical kidnapping cases that are conducted through social services and at the hands of law enforcement are very much a situation where they never get their children back. And it's heartbreaking for me. You know, somebody asked, did you get beat up by the cops? You know, getting beat up by the cops a lot of times would be a lot easier than what this family's been put through. Because a lot of times you can get some sort of sympathetic play from people. It's a sensational story in the sense of how do I want to say it? When you have video of cops beating someone up, assaulting someone, or, you know, deleting them from the world in a wrongful way, the public will pay attention to that because it's kind of sexy, you know? It really plays well. And so getting people to pay attention to a case like this, where, you know, in Heidi's in the chat, Grandma Heidi's in the chat now. When mistakes were made, and Heidi, we talked about this last night over and over and over again. We value correction. Heidi values the correction. Heidi values the fact that I was able to look at the videos that we had and say, hey, here's where we made some mistakes, folks. We got to own it. Now let's make sure we tell other people how not to make these mistakes. You don't let the cops in your house. You don't let social workers in your house. If they say, no, we have to come in, then you ask for a warrant. When you kick them out, kick them all out. That's just the way it is. You have to know these things. And if we don't use cases like this, if we don't use stories like this to educate others, then there's just no there's just no hope. But here's the wonderful thing about this case. Not only were we able to use some of the mistakes made on that day in July as a means to educate other people, we can now say, if you are willing to fight, if you're willing to go public, if you're willing to have your story told, if you're willing to find someone who will platform the story for you, if you're willing to fight behind the scenes with all of that going on, you could win. There's hope. You can win. Sometimes you could beat the system. Sometimes you can beat the system. You can mount enough of an assault on the system. You can bring enough public pressure. You can bring enough scrutiny to bear that the system says, we don't want to fight anymore. And this is the closest I'm going to come to taking any credit for this, because once again, I didn't do this. This wasn't me. This was, once again, this was predominantly the two biggest warriors in this were Caden and Kaylin, who were fighting so ferociously but quietly behind the scenes. Like, Heidi told me that Kaylin literally called up her attorney, who's a public defender, and said, you need to do this. And the public defender's like, well, if you want that done, you do it. And Kaylin tells the public defender, that's your job. That's what you get a paycheck for. Do it. And it got done. That's balls, folks. You know, Valor News parody says you better have deep pockets to fight the system. But that's the thing. This family doesn't have deep pockets. That's what made them easy targets and easy victims, because the system saw them as not being able to fight back. But they did fight back. They used every means at their disposal that they could afford, which was virtually nothing more than being loud. And that, like I said, that's where I'm not going to take credit, but where I come in is I was able to help them get loud. We took vulnerable targets that everybody viewed, and they're watching and they know, because I've said this. They took these targets because they see them as poor trash living in a trailer, viewed them as low IQ, ignorant, anti-intellectual types, and they said, we can make easy work of them. And we took their story and we blew it up. We blew it up. And we helped them fight. We helped them get it out there. When nobody else wanted to talk, when no other news outlets really wanted to cover the story, when nobody else showed any real interest, we just very quietly, well, not quietly, but very methodically and very efficiently just told their story. And we got louder, and we got louder, and we got louder, and we got louder, and we got louder. And we're going to continue to get loud. They have one more court date coming up where the county is going to basically have to admit that they screwed up in front of a judge and let them know, the judge know, that this is all done. We're not pursuing a termination of parental rights anymore, and it's done. I got a few things that not hang-ups, but they have a few things that they agreed to as part of this that they've got to finish up. But hey, you play nice, which was one of the wonderful things about this situation was the social worker who came and spoke with them the other day and telling them that Hayven was coming home is like, we've never worked with a family like yours before. And we know for a fact that that social worker was watching the content that I was putting out. We know the social worker was paying attention to the content that was being put out. We know that others have been paying attention. And so what do we do? We just keep at it. When you're in a situation like this, you just keep at it. You keep plugging away. You don't give up. If you get pulled over and you've got dash cams, which, by the way, if you don't have dash cams in your cars, folks, you need to get dash cams. You save up for them if you have to. You ask for them for Christmas. You ask for them for a birthday present. You put them on an Amazon wish list. Whatever. You get dash cams. But if you get pulled over and you've got the dash cam to prove that you weren't speeding, and you got the dash cam to prove that you weren't weaving all over the road, you use that dash cam when you go to court and you fight like hell. You don't let them take you to court and put you in a position where you have no choice but to plead guilty because the cop shows up. No, you tell the cop, I've got dash cams and I'll pull that video and I'll see you in court because my dash cam proves you're lying. You might walk away with a ticket. Chances are you might not. But you may also end up making that cop look like an absolute ass when he shows up and you prove him wrong in court and your case gets dismissed. You show up for the fight. You don't go looking for the fight, but you show up for the fight. When they bring the fight to you, you fight back. Now, I'm using that in a literary sense. There is a time and place for self-defense, don't get me wrong, but you don't ever get physical outside of some very rare cases. And we'll talk about that sometime as it relates to some laws that have been passed here in the last few years when it comes to self-defense against government agents. But when I talk about doing violence against government employees, what I'm talking about is you fight, and you fight them hard, you fight them viciously in their own system, but you also fight them outside their system. You don't play by the rules. You don't keep your mouth shut just because you're afraid. When they come to you and say, hey, we need you to, we've already taken your baby, or we've already got this, or we already got that, we're going to need you to go ahead and cooperate. You never plead guilty. Ever, ever, ever never plead guilty. You make them take you to court and prove their accusations. But outside of that, you fight them on social media platforms. You fight them in video platforms. You fight them in podcasts. You fight them wherever. You get the data. You find the data. You show where they screwed up. You show how they plotted against you. You show how they colluded against you. You fight and you fight and you fight and you fight and you fight, and you don't shut up and you don't get quiet and you don't go silent. You play a strategic game. You agree with them on some things, and that's what we told Caden and Kaylin. Play nice with the social worker. Don't go into a meeting with a social worker and be an asshole. You play nice with the social worker. You let us do the dirty work. You let us say what needs to be said about the cops and about Audrey from the Winona County Social Services. You let me point out that fat ass pig Robbie Flaherty made a lot of mistakes. You let me point out that the chief of police, Jose, from the St. Charles Police Department, flat out ignored a property owner telling him that he wanted somebody trespassed from her property, and he refused to do it. You let me point out that Robbie not only ignored the trespass when Heidi ordered Audrey out of the house, he went ahead and violated the wishes of the property owner and told the social worker she was coming in whether anybody liked it or not. You let me point that out. You let me help you put pressure on that, but you never stop fighting. You never give up. So even when I come to somebody like me and Caden, sorry about that, got some buffering. You have to mentally, emotionally, psychologically prepare yourself for a reality where you may not get your child back. You have to be prepared for that. You prepare for the worst while you fight for the best outcome possible. And that's the news that I got from them yesterday, is they got that outcome because they fought and they never gave up. Like, folks, I'm black-pilled about the nature of our republic. I'm black-pilled about the state of Minnesota. If you know anything about what's going on in Minnesota right now, you know just how much corruption is here, and you know just how much people get away with corruption, especially if you're a segment of society that wants, corrupt government wants to protect. So I'm pretty damn black-pilled. But this story, this case, is a breath of fresh air for me. It is a moment where I can sit back and I can say all of the tension, all of the hard conversations that I have had with Heidi and others about this case, all the times I've had to say, hey, hold on, let's not overdo it here, let's be careful how we approach this. All of those times, all of the hate messages that I have gotten from people commenting on the videos and saying terrible things about me and saying terrible things about the family and lying about the family and lying about me and sending me private messages on social media, attacking me over and over and over and over and over again. All of that stuff. All of those things. It's all worth it. And it's all worth it to keep fighting. And as I've said, they've got a lot more fighting to do because they've got Hayven home. We've gotten justice for baby Hayven, but now it's time to get justice for Caden and Kaylin. Now it's time to get justice for Heidi. See, this fight's not done. The biggest battle is won. A lot of you who know me know that I have a very literary side. My content on my shows is far different than, it's not different than who I am. This is who I am. But I'm multifaceted. My fight for justice and my fight against injustice brings out one of my facets, the angry angry man who hates injustice comes out. But I'm also very literary. I write essays, I write poetry, I write fiction, novellas and short stories, and I read a lot. And as such, as part of all of that, part of those facets of my being, I am a very, very big student of J.R.R. Tolkien, the books, not the lackluster movies and TV series that have been made from his stuff. But when you read his works, there is at the end of The Return of the King, which is the third book in the two towers, or not the two towers, but in the series, The Return of the King. At the end, the battle's won. The forces, the good forces of the West, of Middle Earth, have fought this war. They've defeated Sauron. They've destroyed Mordor. They've destroyed the Ring of Power. And in any other book, you would, in any other story, you know, outside of some of the stupid cheesy horror movies that are out there that have to set themselves up for freaking stupid sequels, you imagine, you know, the fighting's over, the war is won, the evil is defeated, it has gone on, it's gone away. And to some degree, the characters, especially the hobbits, Frodo and Samwise Gamgee, Frodo Baggins and Samwise Gamgee are returning from Numenor, and they're returning from Gondor, and they're trekking across Middle Earth, and they finally get back to the Shire, and the Shire doesn't look anything like what they thought what they left it as. It's completely, it's overrun. And they realize that Wormtongue from the Rohirrim, the agent of Sauron who had been poisoning King Theoden with his words, they realized that he, along with others, had come in and had taken over, and I'm getting part of that wrong, I'm sure I am, but they'd taken over the Shire, and they had enslaved the hobbits, the Shire folk. They had basically been taking advantage of the absence of strength and power in the region, because Strider, Aragorn, had left and was no longer there to protect the Shire, and the few hobbits that had the bravery to fight had all gone off to fight. And so here come Frodo and Sam, and they recognize that they do not recognize their homeland. And so, and I'm going to wrap this up here in a few minutes. I have to run into the store. So they pick up arms and they chase off this evil. They kill this evil because the battle was won. The battle was won, but there was still a fight left to finish off the evil. And there's a lesson in that for all of us. Don't think for a minute that because you won the major battle, that you won the one goal that what mattered the most, that gives you the greatest victory. You get baby Hayven back, whatever your baby Hayven is. Or you get the cop fired who abused you, who lied on the stand about you, who fabricated evidence against you, or the county attorney who maliciously prosecuted you, and you could prove it, and so you do. Just because you've won the major fight doesn't mean there, or the major battle, the war-ending battle doesn't mean there aren't going to be fights left. And you have to be willing to continue to fight those, even if it's uncomfortable. And the reality is that very often we walk away from victories like getting Hayven home and we say, it's done. No, we still have a fight for justice for Caden and Kaylin and Heidi. They were all victimized by the system. We still have a story to tell. We still have a reality to this wherein we're going to continue to expose the chief of police of St. Charles. We're going to continue. We have data on him that we're going to use to embarrass the living hell out of him. We're gathering data on fat old Robbie Flerkey. Yeah, we're going to fat shame him. The next video I do, we're going to fat shame the hell out of him. We're going to show you just how much of a danger to his agency that he is. And you don't have to like it. You could say, well, that's mean. No, I'm sorry, you're a public servant whose job is supposed to be protect and serve. Like, if this guy was trying to do CPR on you, he would have a heart attack and fall on you and crush you to death because of how worthlessly, slovenly fat he is. So you don't stop fighting because you won the main battle. You go in and you conduct a mop-up operation, and that's what we're going to do. And, you know, in Minnesota, we're not known for being pansies when it comes to cold weather, but we're also strategic when it comes to cold weather. And one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to protest. We're going to protest the St. Charles PD. We're going to show up and we're going to stage a protest at St. Charles PD. They're not going to know the day. They're not going to know the time. They're not going to know when, but we're going to show up. They're not going to know. I'm going to show up at the St. Charles PD. I'm going to take time off from work and I'm going to show up at the St. Charles Police Department someday. And I'm going to demand to see the chief of police. We're going to get him on camera. We're going to question him on camera. Now, whether or not he talks to me, that's different. But we're going to get him on camera. We're going to ask him why he would allow his officers to take part in an illegal medical kidnapping. We're going to ask him why he wouldn't shut that down. We're going to ask him why he would ignore one physician in favor of another physician that wasn't on scene with medical staff that day. We're going to ask why he would ignore medical staff on that day. We're going to ask the chief of police why he violated his oath, being a proud veteran of the United States Air National Guard, why he would violate his oath to the Constitution on numerous occasions. We're going to ask why, unrelated to anything to do with this case, one of his officers would cite Caden in a traffic accident that he didn't cause. Calvin and Hobbies. That's not how you spell Hobbs, by the way. Do you have any evidence that there was a medical emergency that he didn't act? The problem, he chose to act on false information that there was a medical emergency and allowed he and his junior officer, his subordinate, took part in a medical kidnapping on behest of social workers. A medical kidnapping is when social workers use information, unrelated or unverified information, to justify removing a child from a home when there's no sign that the child is in any kind of medical danger. I feel like Calvin is just being a troll now. That's fine. So we're going to put him on the spot, and we're going to ask. He's not going to know when. He's not going to know when I'm going to show up. So we're not done fighting. We're going to keep the pressure on. Now, we know he's not going to answer any questions on camera. Because if he answers on camera, we'll be able to demonstrate, if he lies, that he lied. And if he tells the truth, then he's on the hook. So we know we're not going to get him to answer. Folks, the system is corrupt. It's not just cops that are corrupt. It's not just social workers that are corrupt. I know if you're a conservative and you don't like public schools and you think they're corrupt, they're not the only things that are corrupt. Your police, conservatives who don't like every other aspect of government, especially social workers and public schools, you love the cops. Well, they're all government employees. They're all members of government. Corruption is everywhere. The institution of policing is in need of massive reform, but the entire institution of government is in need of massive reform. And if you want the rest of the details, just go watch the Justice for Baby Hayven playlist this will be part of. We're just not done getting justice for the rest of the family. Mercedes, let him be. I can't tell if he might just be confused because he's came in at the end. It's fine. As long as he's not trolling, I don't have a problem with it. And just there for a little bit, it felt like a little bit of a troll. So, but you know how I feel about actual trolls and certain things. So this seems like legitimate stuff. So yeah, Calvin, if you want to know the full story, look up the Justice for Baby Hayven on here, and you'll see a breakdown of the body cam video and how the family made some mistakes, and how the corruption was exposed just because the family made mistakes, and it allowed us to expose the corruption. So we're not done. So folks, I'm going to wrap this up. I got to run in and get some pico de gallo for dinner tonight. If you like the channel and you like what I do and you want to support me, folks, I could really use it right now. So when things are not super solid in the MBRR Media household. So I would really appreciate if there's, if you can subscribe to the channel, great. Share the videos, that's great. If you can do super chats at any time when you're watching, that's great. Super thank yous on the after, on the rewatch, that's great. Channel memberships are great. If you don't like to have to go through the middleman and you like the content and you want to come straight to me, you can check out my Cash App, and that's $MBRR Media. Anything helps. Like I said, this is not a money making scheme for me. I don't make a living on this. I wish I could. I wish I could make a living doing what I do. But it would also break my heart to have to do this every day to tell more and more of these stories, because it is overwhelming. So I'm very thankful to have been part of this story. We're not going away. We're going to keep the pressure on. We're going to get justice for the rest of the family in this case. And we're not going to stop fighting. Not going to stop talking about this case. We're going to keep it alive. And we've got other cases that, we're going to be, working on. Just because you haven't heard me talk about some cases for a while doesn't mean we don't have other information that we're going to revisit in those cases. So I really appreciate every one of you guys. I hope that you have a great start to your new year, despite the chaos in the world right now, especially here in the Republic of the United States. So until next time, my friends, fight for your freedom, it is yours. Fight for your liberty, it belongs to you. And sic semper tyrannis.